then take a political tone, it then sort of, muddy, otherwise beautiful discussions that we can reach some sort of understanding. Okay? Because, for instance, this idea of founders and then a founder, okay? What it is that if we have really agreed, one of the problematic aspects that people find with 4th August is the fact that 4th August 1947 was the formation of the UGCC.
All right.
Are you getting that point?
Yes, before we get to the UGCC, let's talk about the Ghana case properly.
Yeah.
Just as you've given us the history of the youth and how and the formations there. Let's talk about the Ghana case.
Yeah.
Before the UGCC was formed.
Yeah. So in Ghana case,
when did our fight for independence begin? Who were so you said, for example, in the Ghana case, one person got the torch and brought it to the finish line.
Yeah.
Let's start from where it began, before it got to one person who got to the finish line.
Thank you very much.
And then it will help us better understand this battle of whether the apostrophe should be before or after the S.
Yeah, so what it is that Ghana was there, it was a group of independent states. So you have your Achem, you have the Eves, you have the Gan states, you have the Fanti states and all of them. So as we know, right from 1400, the Europeans came, different kind of Europeans came. It was the British that made a deliberate attempt to colonize. So in 1874, they passed the order in council. 1876, we became a colony of Gold Coast. In fact, 1876, Nigeria was part of Gold Coast, southern Nigeria. So most of the people who went to law school from the 1876 all the way to 1888, they were all practicing in Gold Coast around that time until 1888, before Nigeria got its own separate entity. So the capital everything was being run from Ghana. So that was what it was. So because of the incorporation in 1876, now you have become a colony. So the struggle that will start from that period is what we call the anti-colonial struggle, because now you are under power of another territory, not on your own as independent states like before the British came in. So that is where we start normally with Fanti Confederation,
yes,
which was the first major attempt. They were thinking that when the British leave, they will take over. So they founded the Fanti Confederation, but most of their ideas was not included. It was circulating around the Central Province area. The Gans also come with the Gan native societies, where they were also trying to also look for the kind of cohesion, where they also fight for their autonomy. But it was also strictly within the Gan enclave. So over a time, the first major attempt was when the Fantis found what is called Fanti Amembu Feku. And then later it coalesced into what is called the Aborigines Right Protection Society. It was Aborigines Right Protection Society, which was the first major organization that had Gan, the Achem, and other people all getting involved in the Aborigines Right Protection Society. And it's as a result of the Land Bill of 1894, which the government, the colonial government at that time, tried to legalize around 1897, leading to the deputation from the members of the Aborigines Right Protection Society going to England to fight their case in the House of Lords, winning it. And then historians agree that that was the first major independence, because the land of the people of the Gold Coast was stopped from being alienated by foreigners.
All right.
Because in Lagos, the Oba of Lagos, there's a famous case called Amadou Tijani versus the Queen. That famous case, if you look, Chief Oluwa's case. What the Oba of Nigeria did was that he gave the land as a gift to the Queen of England. And it became the property of Queen of England. So in the Gold Coast, what we did was that our land belongs to us. Thankfully, we have Kesley Efo, Jomesa Sabes, and Co. Because Gold Coast, people started going to law school not today. Really, for 1887, Sabah has already been a barrister. So they had this expertise. So when they went and fought and win the case, it saved the West African coast from their land being alienated, as opposed to the East Africa and the South Africa, where they didn't have the intellectual capacity legally to fight for their land rights. So you see that when you go to East Africa, they have to fight wars because their land were overtaken by the Europeans using the land law that we fought over.
Okay.
So the first major one is the Aborigines Right Protection Society. And the people there, Kingsley Hayford, Wilson Say, John Mensah Sabes, Peter Rena, and all those people need to be acknowledged around that time.
Okay.
For they did serious work around that time. Okay. But what they were fighting for was not independence. They were fighting to protect not only the land, but also their rights, and how the European laws was also kind of oppressing them. But
when you say their rights, you mean whose rights?
Their right as Africans.
Individual rights. Not
individual right. Their right to work and also receive the same amount of pay. Okay. So if you have someone like Mario Plant, who is a lawyer and at the same time a police officer, going to court and prosecute cases, and he's paid a minimal amount of salary than a small boy who has been brought from England, is paid far better than him when he can't even do the work Mario Plant is doing. Okay. Then it is not a kind of thing. So the idea of Africanization of the civil service and the right of the Africans to receive equal pay just like Europeans, because the Africans who were lawyers, most of them were not people who were those who just went to the Inns of Court, and some of them went to the universities first, have their they are undergraduates, some even do their masters before they became lawyers.
All right.
So if such people are working within the civil service and a small boy who have never even been to, let's say, Form 5 in Europe, come and is receiving huge sums of money, the Africans need to fight for their rights. Right. So these were some of the things. So that was step one. So those were the things they were fighting for. Obnoxious laws that were also being passed, like the land law, like the forest land law. When they did the land law and they couldn't, in 1911, they introduced what is called the Crown Forest Land Law.
So all these were things that Aborigines Rights Protection
They were fighting for.
All right.
Then Kingsley Hayford came with that if we can get our independence, then we need to have the West African idea. Gold Coast alone cannot do it. We need to get our brothers in Nigeria, the Gambia, and Sierra Leone. So the formation of the National Congress for British West Africa became a reality. Okay. So all of us pulling our resources together to fight a common imperialist, colonialist who is lording all of us. So they also did a lot of humans, so Kingsley Hayford and his group, they also performed their groups. Then in the party politics actually shifted from Cape Coast to Accra. So in Accra we have Kojo Thompson, A.W. Kojo Thompson, founding Gamambi Party. Okay? Then you have the Dr. F.W. Nanka Bruce, also founding the Ratepayers Association. Okay. So there was that element of municipal elections and what have you. They founded this organization. They all contributed towards the realization.
Were all these, did all these happen before the UGCC?
All happened before the UGCC.
Okay, tell us about the UGCC.
Before the UGCC, there have been an attempt to found a party called KUHE. Which in Ghana means the new party.
And that party,
yes, and that party is what became the National Democratic Party, the DOMOS. The party was founded by Kofi Edumwa Bosman and Olenu Akufo-Addo and several others. It was the party they were going to use. So they started from 1943. They ran the elections. It was within that context where these things were going on that J.B. Danquah also came in. Of course, Danquah started with his Gold Coast Youth Conferences with other groups. Then he decided there's the need to find a very cohesive political organization. So he went to Western Region C Park Grant because they need to be money backers, okay, the money backs. Then you see R.S. Blay and other people. They sat down, and then Francis Awono Williams, those people that he met, that they came to Accra. The KUHE members also actually offload their party off, and then they joined. Okay. So within this, on the 4th August 1947 at Canaan Lodge in Cape South Pond, UGCC was founded as the first major political party with branches all over, as opposed to the small ones that were what we call geographically located political entities.
All right. So the UGCC was formed then. Yeah. And history has it that Nkrumah came from school, from England,
No,
to come and work as the General
So
Secretary.
on that day of the formation of the UGCC, and I will defer to our people who are into politics, don't we have members in diaspora in the political parties? So in political parties, what happens is that on the 4th August 1947, the General Secretary was Joseph William de Graaf Johnson.
Okay.
He read it at the meeting that now a member, one of our member in diaspora, Francis Inria Nkrumah, has sent his felicitation for the formation of this party today. That is de Graaf Johnson. You can get this thing in Gold Coast Spectator on 47. That is the statement he made. So it wasn't like the members of the UGCC were unaware of Nkrumah. Nkrumah has always, because after all, in the Manchester Conference of 1945, all the people who were forming this thing were people Nkrumah has been with. Akwa Adjei himself was with Nkrumah from Lincoln to Columbia all the way to Britain. Okay. He was there when even Nkrumah came to Britain. It was Akwa Adjei who gave him the house to stay.
Okay.
So they know themselves. So when they were finding UGCC, Nkrumah has always been a member in diaspora.
All right. Now, tell us about when Nkrumah came down, joined the party as a general secretary, and what led to his breakaway to form the CPP.
Okay. So what happened was that when they founded the party, de Graaf Johnson was saying that it's affecting his legal career. There's a lot he's supposed to, of course.
And gentlemen, I'm going to come to you in a minute. I just want us to have a proper historical background. Yes.
So it was affecting his legal career. So what he did was that, okay, just after 2 months, he said he's not interested. They should find somebody. So Akwa Adjei suggested Nkrumah. And then Nkrumah was invited. In fact, Nkrumah didn't want to come. So Padmore said, this is what we've been discussing all along. The opportunity has come. So go and do it. So based upon, there were about 4 letters that was written. Dankwa alone wrote 2 letters. Finally, Grant also wrote some. And they sent it to him. Then Padmore said, my friend, go. This is the moment. So Nkrumah decided to come. He didn't even come straight. He passed through 3 countries before he finally reached Gold Coast and took over the organization. Indeed, the organization they founded, because of the caliber of individuals involved, these were top lawyers of their time. And they didn't even have time. So the organization became a kind of conservativist in approach. So you could even see it from the slogan, okay, self-government within shortest possible time, of which somebody asked de Graaf Johnson that day, what do you mean shortest possible time? Is it 20 years, 15 years? And de Graaf Johnson explained that it could be 10 years, 15 years, depending upon how Gold Coasters will involve themselves. So when Nkrumah came, because he was not working then, he was put on a salary as the general secretary to take over. So when he came, he activated what is called the CYO, Committee of Youth Organization, which has been lethargic for many years. Opening branches so in Ashanti, you get young techs like Victor Wusu, you got Arara Mpansa, you got Kobu Edusei and Co in Ashanti. You have Sakishek in Sekendi Takoradi, you have Ampansadazis and Co in Cape Coast. So he was able to energize the party. And then suddenly, life came into the UGCC.
Okay.
And then, this was a period around 48. There has been cocoa hold up. Swelling short diseases have affected cocoa, and so on. Then the veterans were also clamoring for their allowances for the, excuse me, for the war. Okay, so they also, all these issues came. And then Nico Abnabani has also come with his boycott of European goods.
Okay.
So these things were happening. So Nkrumah said, we need to involve ourselves in this act. So the politicians involved themselves, and it escalated. That's what we call the 1948 riots or the disturbances. When it happened, the British set in a committee, first by, say, Watson Commission, where they went there to discuss the issues. Then they realized that these people are clamoring for independence. So out of Watson Commission's report, they decided to bring in, say, James Henry Kusi constitutional reforms of 1948. So when they brought the Kusi constitutional reform, Nkrumah said, hey, we shouldn't say that we are not involved in the 48 disturbances with regards to Watson Commission's report. Okay. We should own it so that the Gold Coasters will know that we are the one. Then they say, no, you can't just rush. You are too radical. This is not the way we go. So this brought the
Were they in fact involved in the riot?
Because Nkrumah sent the young text into it. And they do not want to admit. You see, okay. These were some of the top shots who were in Roger Club with the governor. They don't want to spoil their name. Some wants to go and have their golf playing, have their horse ridings. So if you go and bring this, you are affecting their social activities and friendship at a higher level.
The young people went out to do it.
Yes.
Was this around the same time when the veterans had just come back from war?
It was after the crossroad issue.
They also joined in the riot.
Yes, so they have to join because they've killed the veterans. Also, the looting was also going on because of Kobnabani's boycott of European goods. So this flurry of activities actually...
You mentioned that it happened in 48.
All in 48.
It didn't begin in 47.
It started, the activities started, and Nkrumah came in 47.
Okay.
Before it went to 48, okay. And these activities, and then there was a confusion within whether we should own the riot as per Watson Commission report. That is what brought the fight. Right. Because some of the accusation that Obechebi Lamptey, for instance, leveled against Nkrumah at the working committee meeting of the UGCC. It is there. You can get it from Austin's book. Dennis Austin, the UCC's working committee. Everything that happened from 47 to 48, it is there. So Obechebi Lamptey addressed me and told me that we have even heard that you are a red. In those days, when they say you are red, it means you are a communist. And the British don't want to have anything to do with communists and his activities. So Nkrumah was like embarrassment to them. So this frisk-off happened within the party, and Nkrumah decided that...
to break away.
It was even Kobeduse who started. Kobeduse brought his back and said, my friend, if they say they don't like you, this is my back. Write it and resign. So Nkrumah wrote his resignation letter on the back of Kobeduse. And then they left, and then they went straight to Sopon, the very place UGCC also founded. And they went there and they founded the party as a counter force to the UGCC.
All right. And
so from that period all the way to 57, we realized that the political contributions of the so-called, that is where I come to the Big Six. When the disturbances was going on and the British wanted to arrest the leaders, at that time this group of leaders were sitting down at the party headquarters and they came and they grabbed them. So, Christensen, who has always been there and been writing, who is Akufo-Addo's buddy, was not there. R.S. Blay was in Sekondi Takoradi. And people have gone to cordon off his house that they will not allow anybody to arrest him. And the British will not dare to go to R.S. Blay's house in Sekondi because all the major terrible activities are done by the railway workers up there, so they cannot. So someone like R.S. Blay lost the opportunity to become a big seven. So is Christensen, so is Paddington, and so on. We would have become, it could have been big 20, depending upon the number of people British would have gotten when they were arrested at the time. Are you getting that point? So for me, I do ask, what are the contributions of these people? Because if you look at it, take Obechebi, I'm doing it quickly for you for understanding to come.
I don't want us to digress.
Yeah.
I don't want us to digress. I want us to stay on the journey you are taking us on, all right? From the beginning of the resistance, the call for independence, all the way to when Nkrumah took the torch and led us to independence. Yeah. We are almost there.
Yeah, so let me finish it there. So, Kuse constitutional reform, what he did was that he created a first constitution on which we should run elections.
Okay.
So the election was slated for 1951.
Okay.
And instead of legislative council, we now have legislative assembly. But in the northern territories, because they have never been part of the struggle, they decided that they should run their elections individually, no political parties. So they called themselves Northern People's Party. They were in the north. But they were not to run campaign. Also, neither UGCC or CPP should go to the north and campaign.
Interesting.
So none of them went up north to campaign. So that is 51 elections. In that 51 elections, it was terrible for UGCC at that election because Busia, for instance, lost his seat. And for him to come to the Legislative Council, Dr. Isaac Boatin Asafadie has to loan him. In those days, you can give somebody your seat if you don't want to go.
Loan?
Yes, you can loan him.
Wow.
So it was Dr. Isaac Boatin Asafadie who gave his seat in Ashanti that Busia, take it and go. I don't want to go. And that's how Busia. So in one of the parliamentary Hansard, he and Busia had some contestation. And then Busia says, people who cannot even express themselves in English are here. And so it's the same as people who also came to this house through the back door. You see? So you have some of these interesting things going on. Back in the day, they were very funny and interesting.
I see.
You see?
I see.
So only Dankwa at that time, then Van Leer also, we have to run the 54 election because we have to train our people in election. So William Bedford Van Leer, who was also a judge, came with a new constitution that we used to run the 54 elections. In the 1951 election, 3 parties were run. They were National Democratic Party, Kofi Edumua Bosman Olenu and his group. And then you have the CPP, of course, Nkrumah, and then the UGCC. After that election, UGCC was so destroyed, okay, that they couldn't even come together because even R.S. Blay, who stood in Ankobla, got just one vote. Such a big shot like that. He voted. Digdal Johnson himself couldn't get a single vote in Infantimal constituency, which is upon. So what happened was that UGCC got divided. So in 1954 election, UGCC then had 3 parties. Obeche Bilamte founded his party, Ghana National Party. Dr. Kumi Ansakwe found Ghana Action Party. And then Busia found what is called Ghana Congress Party. And then there was also MAP, Muslim Association Party. We have the Anro Youth Association by Modesto Apalu. Then there was also Wasa Youth and so on. Okay. In that election, Nkrumah won again in the 54.
Okay.
Then in the 56, another election ought to come in. This time, there was a contestation from Ashanti. Are we going to be unitary state or federal state?
Okay.
Because they were scared of, if you go to unitary, now they have taken over from 1949 as the leading producers of cocoa. And they were the leading producers of cocoa. So are we going to take our resources and use it to take care of others?
I think I'm enjoying the story a little too much. And I've given you all of my time.
So it's okay. So
I wanted us to get to 1957.
So what happened was that 56 election was the last election to 57.
Okay.
The 56 election was based on, it's very critical in the conversation because it is what makes Ghana today what it is.
Okay.
Because it was run on the federal or unitary states. And then we voted overwhelmingly that it should be unitary.
Okay.
And so after 56, there was no any elections to decide who should be because the date for the independence has already been granted there that after 56 election, the following year, which is 6th March, Ghana is going to have independence. So whoever won the 56 election was automatically going to be the president.
And Nkrumah won.
And Nkrumah won the 56 election.
All right.
Against the NLM.
So
National Liberation Movement.
That is, I want to say brief history.
That is a brief history. Because the history is long, but I've done my best to.
If this is the brief one, then you and I need to sit down for a day, a full day, to properly understand exactly our history very well. I'm going to come to my other guests in the studio, but before that, I have a letter here, which I want to read, and then I'll come to you, Yabuabin. All right, so it's on your screen now. You can see it.
Oh.
You recognize it?
Oh, I know the letter.
Okay. It's dated the 10th of October, is it 1951?
51.
All right, 1951. And it reads, Dear Mr. Obdam, Dear Mr. Obdam, I exceedingly regret delay in replying to your 2 letters. That man, Kwame Nkrumah, is now leader of government business, has started his tricks again. This time, he, who is the government, is inviting all political leaders and chiefs to join him to send an ultimatum to His Majesty's government of the United Kingdom for self-government now. And if rejected, to declare positive action, strikes, and boycotts, etc. There has been hectic activity all over the place. And on Sunday, we of the UGCC met at a great meeting and turned down his challenge, flat, as being an invitation to criminal conspiracy against law and order. I had to be away in Kumasi for long periods last month, and I'm just clearing up a pile of work. And this is from JB Dankwa. All right. And then just under his name is Called from the Journey to Independence and After, Volume 2. So this is from...
Is the letter having Yard Chambers at the top?
I beg your pardon?
The letter, does it have Yard Chambers at the top?
No, it has Dankwa, I think Dankwa... So that the title is Nkrumah and His Tricks, and it's
I'm looking at the top, because normally he writes with that all the time. Anyway, you let it pass.
It just has Dankwa written in Nkrumah. Nkrumah and His Tricks. That's it. All right. Mr. Bobby Samuel, have you seen this letter?
I think it's been circulating on the net for the past couple of days.
Yes.
Definitely, I have seen it.
Does it mean anything to you?
It only adds to the spice of the battle of apostrophes. Clearly, I'll say, and let me commend Mr. Ankra. He's done extensive work on this. He says it's about history, and he's a historian. The thing about history is that once established, it's all dependent on facts.
Yeah.
So it's important that for those of you who are professed factual-based persons, you put some of this stuff on paper. Well, you've pulled it together from different sources.
Yep.
Right? For example, this is the first time I'm hearing that the resignation letter was written on the back of Krobaduse. I knew Krobaduse was a very powerful figure in the CPP. I didn't know he was the instigator of the breakaway, which implies that this process was not an event. It's a process.
It's a process.
It was not an event.
Yeah.
It's a process. So I think the point that His Excellency the President is missing is that in spite of it being a process, it will be difficult to have an organized group without a specific leader. If, like he's saying, it wasn't formalized in the American way. In the American way, they met and subscribed their signatures to a document. So more or less, the document was the central theme. But all those who subscribed to the document were there. So you can see that based on their signatures to that particular document, they were the founding fathers. In this case, it's a number of factors and events, some historical, the battle having started for a long time, the expansion in constitutional rights over the period, and then at a certain juncture, some unexpected events coming together, boycotts, riots, and all that. But I think the tipping point, in every human endeavor, in every process, there is a tipping point. I think in the case of our independence, the tipping point was self-government now, and self-government
within the shortest possible time.
So, if we concede that they were all involved, and we concede that Kwame Nkrumah came in and continued, and that, like he's saying, there wasn't even an epochal Big Six event, more or less, it is the positive action resulting from declaration of self-government now that may have precipitated the final decision to let's have our independence. Then you have to concede that some particular individual at some point was the catalyst. So then you have to look for cause and effect. So throughout, I would say from Aborigines Rights Society right through to
the
UGCC, all the way to the 1954 election, was course. Kwame Nkrumah was part of it. He already become leader of government business in 1951.
Yeah.
So all this was course. But the effect, really, giving us independence, the departure point, I think, was the clear division between self-government now and the shortest possible time. So this is where this letter, is a defining moment that the big six, literally, or should we say J.B. Dankwa, because sometimes the president restricts his battle to J.B. Dankwa and Kwame Nkrumah in seeking to fight for leadership preeminence. And indeed, when you look at this letter, that preeminence demonstrates that there was a clear departure from forcing the issue.
Yeah.
That they didn't believe in self-government now, because they felt that the now would be dangerous to stability, their interests, the carefully constructed constitutional expansions which will lead to final independence. The problem was that the gradual process didn't have a clear timeline with actions that will give you a definite date when Ghana would be independent. So even though the now didn't also have that particular action timeline, it actually brought together a lot of forces that compelled the British to simply walk away. Because don't forget, the Gold Coast was a model colony.
That's it.
The constitutional evolution that Mr. Ankara talks about was being carefully calculated to mature indirect rule. It started from the position of indirect rule of the chiefs, because the British didn't want to manage us directly. So the concessions to a legislative council, continual expansion to the point where we have a People's Assembly and Kwame Nkrumah as leader of government business, were reporting to a Governor General who still reported to the Queen.
Yes.
And even the 1957 Constitution, the Independence Constitution, which still retained the Queen. People forget that the 57 Constitution still retained the Queen. So even though we are the Prime Minister, he had to report to the Queen through the Governor General. So we had independence, but we were still part of the Commonwealth in that structure, like New Zealand still has, like Australia still has, where you are a completely independent nation, and yet you have a Governor General who is responsive to the Queen. Nowadays it's ceremonial, but at that time it was significant, because the Governor General had certain veto powers. So more or less, if you were looking at the gradual self-government in the shortest possible time, then the process up to that point was following that. But then the catalyst comes in. Now, self-government now. And there was all the other rhetoric about it's better to be politically independent than seek ye first
the kingdom of
political, all the rhetoric that Kwame brought in.
the political kingdom and all other things shall be added.
You find the Bible.
I see.
Yes. So Kwame became that firebrand, and supported by other people of like mind, brought this to the fore, forced the issue, self-government now.
Okay.
So in the end, like he's saying, it's not so simple. It's complex. But if you want to maintain the apostrophe to include everybody, then you must always say after that, led by Nkrumah.
Okay.
That's the only way you can acknowledge that.
But to be fair to the president, he said there was a caveat in what he said. He said, we all know that Nkrumah is the foremost. That is why a specific day has been carved out for him.
Birthday.
Yes, but you see,
the significance of his time has been watered down as opposed to what we are doing today.
It is difficult. It is difficult. The president acknowledges that, but he's not willing to concede the preeminence directly. Though he did a lot, but it's all of them. And then, yes, look, Dankwa.
Actually, what he said was that while it is all of them who are being celebrated today, the significance of his input, the pivotal role he played, is the reason his birthday is as the only Ghanaian, he said, whose birthday is celebrated or is observed by the entire country as a holiday, is because of the role that he played.
This is not holiday.
Well, it's observed. It's not a holiday, but
there
it's
shouldn't be a fight. Because before he
But
made
on
those
this
things,
day, which
he
is a
said-
holiday,
he
it
said
is
that
for all of them.
we need to roundly reject the notion that Kwame was a founder.
Yeah,
Yes.
of Ghana. That's
He
what
also
the
made
point.
That was
Yeah.
problematic. That statement was
When you
too...
say we need to roundly reject, then it's not enough to say that Kwame played a preeminent role. Because you are rejecting that very premise. You see? So founders, apostrophe to include everybody, covers the entire historical panorama. But that historical panorama had to come to a head at some point.
Yeah.
Okay.
And in coming to a head, there was an instrument. It's like Indian independence. We mentioned Gandhi today, but in truth, the agitations, Gandhi was not the sole initiator,
he went to meet
a person who concluded the agitations.
From South Africa.
But he was a leading light.
All right.
You go to South Africa, Mandela, South Africa. At the time, people were in the streets dying, and he was in prison. But he became the figurehead. And when finally all the agitations outside, people died, and it resulted in his release, he's the one whose name is mentioned.
Yes.
They are not going back to talk about those who died in the struggle whilst he was in prison. He's the one whose name is mentioned, because you end up with that kind of figurehead. So if the process had followed through to the point where from Aborigines Rights Protection Society, the British had let it go, then one could talk about founders without looking for a preeminent person.
Okay.
But once they diverged at self-government now, then it means that we need to look at the effect, self-government now, effect of the now, on what happened. And I'm saying this morning that the now precipitated, the now accelerated, and therefore the now led to the reluctant departure of the British. But the British were not about to give it up yet. The British were building it up gradually as a model colony to show the rest of Africa, Black Africa, how it will be done. They hadn't even trained civil servants.
Yet.
They were still being managed completely. Civil service, they were only training black clerks. They were not training top echelons. So like he said, it's the people who went abroad themselves to study, the lawyers and all that, who were outside the formal process or inside the legislative system. You understand? So the British was gingerly dealing with them in the hope of co-opting them so that it will get to the point where they will feel that you are ready.
All right.
That's the gradual self-government
Transition.
in the shortest possible time.
Ediji, do you think we should roundly reject the notion that Ghana was founded by one man?
So even before I do this, you know Robert Coleman? Said he's watching the show. I'm like a student of the show, learning from you. But that said, you see, I want to ask you a question. Would you describe John the Baptist as the founder of Christianity? Would you?
No.
Why? He came before Christ.
Of course.
He prepared the way
He prepared the way.
for Christ. In fact, Christ's baptism was done by him.
Yes.
Would you describe John the Baptist as the founder of Christianity? Why Christ and not John the Baptist? I think this matter is obviously settled. Regrettably, Mr. Akufo-Addo had found a convenient way, with the benefit of power, to rehabilitate his uncles that were parts of this whole Ghana conversation. I see a situation where somebody wants to please his uncle, Newofanom, and the rest. Beyond that, I don't see any intellectual basis for Akufo-Addo's claim. Look, you're a woman. Look at the scenario in the Bible where King Solomon was confronted by the two women with a baby. King Solomon asked, what should happen under the situation? One said, with the benefit of a knife, cut the baby into two and give it to us. The other one said, no, keep the baby intact as one whole. When he grows, he will serve all of us. Now, after 60-something years, the one who asked King Solomon to divide the baby into two, now comes and say, oh, the baby that is now grown, 60-something years, is the child. If King Solomon had heard you and divided the child, first of all, what we call Ghana today used to be the Gold Coast colony, the Northern Territories, Ashanti as one, and the UN trusteeship. It has to take the instrumentality, the mind of Osagyefo Dr. Kwame Nkrumah to say, instead of being federal like Nigeria, let us all come together as a unitary state. That is what we are calling Ghana today. And the persons whose mind, thinking, intellectualism resulted in what we call modern Ghana. Akufo-Addo wants to share the credit with his uncle. Mr. President, it appears your appreciation of history, not only governance, is problematic. You need to go back and look at the kind of letters your own uncle, J.B. Dankwa, was writing to the white men. Read the 51 letter again, and I have a copy of it.
All right. I'll read this again.
Read the 1951 letter, written by J.B. Dankwa.
Dear Mr. Updown, I exceedingly regret delay in replying your two letters. I think we'll put it up on the screen so we can all read. I exceedingly regret the delay in replying to your two letters. That man, Kwame Nkrumah,
Condescending.
who is now leader of government business, has started his tricks again.
Tricks.
This time, he, who is the government, is inviting all political leaders and chiefs to join him to send an ultimatum to His Majesty's government of the United Kingdom for self-government now, and if rejected, to declare positive action strikes and boycott, etc. There has been hectic activity all over the place, and on Sunday, we of the UGCC met at a great meeting and turned down his challenge flat as being an invitation to criminal conspiracy against law and order. I had to be away in Kumasi for long periods last month, and I'm just now clearing up a pile of work.
So first
J.B.
of all,
Dankwa.
nothing convicts a man faster than his own words. When Nkrumah was talking about self-rule, now, J.B. Dankwa described that as a criminal conspiracy. And Akufo-Addo says, this man, J.B. Dankwa, should share with Osagyefo Dr. Kwame Nkrumah the foundership of Ghana as an independent. Now, question. The day when the British Union Jack was lowered, where was J.B. Dankwa? He was hiding somewhere. Oh, you was not hiding. Oh, okay, okay, it's okay, okay, it's okay, you, it's okay. Let me do.
It's not about that aspect.
Oh no, let me.
Tell you we're talking about. You see, from 1950, the 1950, the reason why they arrested them, there was a criminal code that they passed, normally about rioting. So when they were scared that what Nkrumah did, and some of them were arrested, if he push that notions again, it will get some of them to be arrested again. And that was what he was referring.
What was the criminal code? That strikes and demonstrations?
Yes, like it was against the public order.
Okay.
What we have improved it today for demonstration. Yeah. So what we have improved it today.
I appreciate your intervention.
But Eduji, question though, just before you end it. Just like Abuabin has said, self-government now was perhaps the one thing that precipitated our independence. But self-government now came up as a result of what had already begun. Self-government within the shortest possible time.
I gave you the story of John the Baptist.
Okay.
And I'm saying that Christ, our Lord and personal Savior, who baptized him.
Yes, but my question to you is, before now...
So why are we not saying that?
Eduji, you haven't heard my question.
No, go ahead.
before now, we weren't acknowledging the contribution of John the Baptist, like you say in this instance. We weren't acknowledging the contribution of all these men who played various roles. And what the president is saying now is that we should acknowledge all of them. Do you disagree with that?
You see, acknowledge them as what? The Bible places the role of John the Baptist where he belongs, and places the role of Christ where he belongs, right? And I'm saying that if you check the historical records, what we call Ghana today used to be fragmented entities. Ashanti, Northern Territory, the Gold Coast Colony, the UN trusteeship. What we now call Volta region, excluding Anglon, right to Yendi, used to be one entity under German until Germany was defeated. And then it came under, to the point of the plebiscite, that eventually incorporated what was then called British Togoland into the broader conversation today. Anglon was not part. Anglon was separate. Anglon was British. Now, if you look at the fact that there were some people whose interest at that time was that let's keep these entities fragmented the way they are, so that today we would have had a Republic of Volta, a Republic of Ashanti,
The Ghana state.
Ghana state.
But that was not the object of federalism.
Federalism
would have been within
What you are taking
you are being juicy with the fact.
Oh, let me proceed. So it took somebody's initiative to say that when all is said and done, let's bring all of these people under one umbrella called Ghana. And that having said this, the Queen, who at that time was the head of all of us, we would demonstrate that self-independence. And in fact, the literature will show you that the likes of this American civil rights leader, Martin Luther and co, felt that, look, who is this black, so conscious of the role that the black man should take, to the point that within the south of the Sahara, Ghana became the torchbearer relative to independence struggle. It was a huge thing at that time. In fact, the story will tell you that even when Nkrumah mooted the idea of United States of Africa, the likes of Tafawa Balewa and co felt that it was convenient for them to be leaders of that, states instead of coming together like what we have in the US today. I am saying that when somebody's intellectual capacity results in the formation of anything, there is nothing dishonest ascribing foundership to that person. And that is why, even in the work of Christ, he started with 9 disciples. The 12 eventually. Now, these 12 helped his ministry to grow. The Bible acknowledges the contribution of each one of them, but the foundership is still retained by Christ, our Lord and personal Savior. The same analogy, I am forcefully applying it to the instance matter by saying that if you read J.B. Danquest's letter, it is clear relative to the verdict. And that for me is my Exhibit 1. And with my Exhibit 1, I am saying that.
This is not a courtroom.
Oh, yes.
But there's that one himself. In 54, he changed his attitude. And in 54, he moved what is called the motion of destiny. He was also trying to force Nkrumah's hand to call for independence, of which Nkrumah too did not agree.
Interesting. Tell us about that.
No,
I can tell
in 51, he was
you
resisting.
cannot pick like carrot. You pick this one.
No, let me.
For me, I want us to get everything.
As we speak,
Yeah, this was
as we speak, we need to have. I am saying that I have tendered Exhibit 1 through you, and you have admitted the justice. Justice now.
After winning one case, you love the judicial process.
Oh, no. I've always been
really
a lover. But you see, I think
different
that
angles to
I think that you see, we do not have the benefit of our own history.
Yeah.
History is a set of events that have happened.
Yeah.
Mr. Akufo-Addo must admit that these events happen. They are not fictional. When it is fiction, you have the benefit of construing your own fiction. The storylines about how Ghana became Ghana, the protagonist, the antagonist, is clearly well documented. There is enough historical document to that effect. So this revisionist politics by Mr. Akufo-Addo is regrettable. And I've always maintained that, look, Akufo-Addo must posture a leader that wants to bring all of us together. This is an attempt at always trying to take a jab, either at Osagyefo and others, to the point that right in front of him, Napo was arrogantly telling him that he, Akufo-Addo, is better than Osagyefo Doctor. And he was there, looking at him. We need to agree, and just as like the Ejapa book, some of these things, there is no way Akufo-Addo can rehabilitate his uncles by rewriting the history of this country. He is not permitted to do that.
All right.
He's not permitted.
All right,
this is not a situation where you can say review means cancel, and that is it. His reality is not what happened.
Mr. Ankra, I'm curious about that 54 letter you mentioned.
Yes, yes. So it was not 54. It is an issue that happened in the Chamber of the Parliament.
What happened?
So Nkrumah, JB Danko has also decided that there's the time, at least we have had the practicals, 51 elections, which they have been in Parliament. So 54, they have also enjoyed it. So this is the moment they can call for the nation's destiny.
Okay.
Unfortunately, it runs counter to the agreement of the 6th March, which has been there, because we couldn't have just moved straight into becoming independent. So in Nigeria, for instance, what they did for them, because we have a lot of education. In Nigeria, they realized there's a problem. The Igbo man is not ready to rule governance. He likes his business. If you look at the British colonial papers, the Yoruba man too is so intellectual, and if you leave him ethnocentrism, then the northern Nigerians, because of Lord Lugard, they have shown element of, how do you call it, rulership, but they were also lacking education. So from when Ghana get it, they sent northern Nigerian people into the United States and then UK, trained them and brought them back to rule. So if you look at Nigerian constitution, if you want to see how an individual is well respected into a foundership idea, you see that the Nigerian constitution clearly says that Nnamdi Azikiwe will become the president. It is in the Nigerian constitution. You won't find it anywhere. Why the governance itself is being run by Tafawa Balewa. So if you look, if Nkrumah Dankwa had that same clout, that I think Nnamdi Azikiwe have, the British would have written him in. Again, look at our Chief Justiceship. Say Akukosa was older than the age he became the Chief Justice. The Constitution was well written by the British to appoint him as a Chief Justice. So the British themselves know the caliber of individuals in terms of even contributions to certain things. First is that if you take Ghana's leadership role, by 54, the last time J.B. Danko was even in Legislative Council was 54. That was the end. Akufo-Addo went to the Legislative Council when Ohineba Sechijan died in 1950. He took his seat, he entered, he lost the next election. So by 52, he's not even there. All of them, none of them. So in terms of governance, after 48, all the way to 57, all the so-called big six, none of them had any political clout in the country called Gold Coast.
Okay.
They have fallen into oblivion.
Okay.
The only thing that resuscitated all of them is 1966 coup. If there had been no 66 coup, we wouldn't be sitting here today discussing founders, apostrophe, or anything.
Okay.
Because their political career by 54 is gone. None of them was there.
Okay.
And it was the young Turks who were from CPP like R.R. Ramponsa, Victor Usu, that today everybody mentioned, they were all CPP young men, it's all of them.
Okay.
Before they went to join the UP tradition in the name of NLM, and when the UP was founded. So the idea, sometimes we need to also interrogate the issue. If somebody says these people contribute, let's take those individuals one by one. What did they do? For me, that is why I'm interested. You want to tell me they did something. Let's take Pauli. Apart from the formation of UGCC, what are his contributions?
But the formation of the UGCC is a significant event.
You form an organization and you are not able to carry it into independence.
Yes, but the organization, that's the organization that brought in Nkrumah.
So no, listen to the argument very clearly. Nkrumah did not stand on UGCC to win independence.
Okay.
You have to establish the facts.
Okay.
He had his own party. If he had stand on the UGCC as a vehicle.
Well, what she's saying is that the UGCC was instrumental in inserting Nkrumah into the process at that particular time.
That is what I'm telling you. He has always been a member. That is why I want you to go back to the 47 establishment of the UGCC, where the General Secretary himself confirmed that this is our member in diaspora. So it is not that Nkrumah was an outsider.
No. But he came into the country. That's what the host is saying.
You see, we are trying to make it look like without the UGCC, there were no other political entities that were there.
Let me ask my question this way.
Okay.
From the earlier narration you gave us, when Nkrumah was invited to come to serve as General Secretary of the UGCC, he did not want to come.
Of course, there were certain things as a student
He wanted
leader,
to stay where he was, in the United Kingdom.
because he wanted to finish his PhD.
Exactly. But the UGCC sent people to him to go and convince him to come to Ghana.
They wrote letter.
Okay, they wrote to him
letters there.
to convince him to come to Ghana to serve as General Secretary. It was during his service as General Secretary that he began to have some disagreements, and then he broke away to set up the CPP.
Yeah.
So my point is that the UGCC played an instrumental role in bringing Nkrumah into the fold to start with, for him to later decide that based on what X, Y, and Z, I want to go and set up the CPP. And so, should we not acknowledge that the UGCC, those who formed it, or the members of the UGCC, also played an instrumental role?
Yes, we should acknowledge them.
Exactly. So when you
like we acknowledge
your earlier question was
Aboriginal Reputation Society and all of them.
Okay. So your earlier question was, if we want to make it Founders Day, the question is, what did they do?
The individual contributions, because you are saying there is no one founder, and we are not taking UGCC as a party. When we say founders, it is not the political entity we are talking about.
Yes, but we are talking to
but
them.
the standard bearers in it.
Exactly.
Okay. So let's take those standard bearers. Is contribution all about forming a party and claiming to be a founder of that party? And even if you didn't do anything, then independence happened. We should be accorded that you are a founder of that country. That is the serious issue.
I think that what we need, this conversation ought to be construed properly within a context. Mr. Akufo-Addo brings a claim that roundly we should reject that notion of Nkrumah as the founder. That is his claim. What is the historical basis, the factual basis supporting that claim? The position ought to be made clear that President Akufo-Addo's own uncle, J.B. Danquah, okay, had the opportunity to either propose independence now. He said no, it should be a graduated process. Then another person comes and says, look, we want it now. Now, J.B. Danquah, out of no whatever, decided to write to the British, our colonial masters dead.
You don't have any colonial masters, colonialists. We are nobody's servants.
Very well. Now writes to this man in 1951, 6 years before independence, and now tells him that, look, this man, Nkrumah, this is what he's seeking to do.
The point has been made. So, and I'm telling you that was also a counter.
No, I am saying that whatever it is, the person that you associate independence now is Osagyefo. And that is what culminated in Ghana's independence and eventually the upliftment of that thing. And you see, I've always maintained that independence that we obtained in 57 is significant in many respects. It was like an end of 500 years of slavery in every form and shape.
And you are likening it to slavery?
No, because you see, remember that
The significance.
the significance.
Okay.
And so the likes of Martin Luther King and others who had then started the civil rights movement in America also felt that, look, which black man is this?
Okay.
That he could think of such thing, that consciousness. And they were willing to even come to Ghana in those days to just learn what is it that culminated in all these ideas. And I'm saying that nobody, absolutely nobody, denies the fact that Park Grant was instrumental in the formation of the UGCC. In fact, Alex Mode's father, Kofi Mode,
was also in. They all contributed.
in fact, if you see the monies they paid,
I posted that a long time. People
Good.
are using it.
if you
online.
see the money they paid, they contributed £5,
Yeah,
£10, and others for the formation
When
of
I
UGCC.
met that information, I
All
was
of
shocked
them
at first.
paid
Yeah.
monies. We cannot say that, quote unquote, we should ascribe foundership to all
all
these
of them.
individuals.
Okay.
They played, and their roles are
is it?
uniquely preserved in history. We will forever remain, remember J.B. Dankwa for the letters he was writing to the British colonialists, and among other things. We'll remember him, and we salute him for that. But President Akufo-Addo cannot rewrite the history of this country by trying to put his uncle at the very center. All these attempts at rehabilitating him regrettably
Foundation by
problematic.
definition is the creation of something new, whether a country or an organization or whatever, like Mr. Ankara observed earlier. But it's important, like Luigi said, that we accept that it's not an event. However, it culminates into that event. Now, in defining foundation, you also go forward to look at how the vision, if it's a country, the vision, the values of that country have been established. And if you look closely at this country, clearly, J.B. Dankwa contributed heavily to the values that we, even now, J.B. Dankwa's predominant values about human rights, the protection of individual rights, private sector, are what are reigning
That is what I want.
currently.
That kind.
that is the value on which this country is built now. Because Kwame, who led the political independence process, roundly rejected issues of fundamental human rights and all that. If you look at the...
It's not that randomly. It's something that happened.
They really
It's
happened?
that impressive.
I do not agree.
No,
So.
please. Okay, let me
disagree.
No, you had
I
the
also
floor.
disagree.
You had the floor. You had the floor. The order in council, though it listed freedoms, did not make them justiciable.
Anyway,
Okay.
It did not make them justiciable.
you could
not go to
You
court
couldn't go to
if-
court to enforce those
to
rights.
enforce
And those were
human
the rights that were tested in Riakoto
Alright.
and failed. But in failing, they became the cornerstone of future constitutional development. You understand? So even now, the New Patriotic Party does not celebrate Dankwa as the founder of Ghana. It's a very important distinction. The New Patriotic Party celebrates Dankwa's values. The values Dankwa brought as a property-owning democracy. That is where individuals could be projected.
What's the difference between the man and his values?
No, it's not about the man. They are celebrating the man not as founder. There's no difference. They recognize
Values can be
Dankwa's
stated.
contribution as the person who infused certain kinds of values into our political system. And those values are the liberal values, recognition of fundamental human rights, freedoms associated with individual growth and opportunity, as distinct from state control and support, which was favored by the CPP and Kwame. So I don't think that we need to quibble over the fact that Kwame Nkrumah was extremely instrumental and indeed in the forefront of securing political independence. Because the facts speak for themselves. Like I said, a departure point is clearly self-government now, as distinct from self-government
within the shortest
possible time. So having gotten that, as part of founding, you still need to develop the vision and values of the state. It's an ongoing process. That's why this conversation is important today. So I am saying that if historically the insistence is that based on the process, not an event, all these people deserve the accolade, the status of founders, then once you use the expanded apostrophe, you must always qualify it with Kwame Nkrumah's leadership, that it was led by Kwame Nkrumah. Because the pushback, you can't even change the history Africa-wide and worldwide. That's what it is.
Do we all agree?
Because,
do we all agree?
Yes, because,
because
Africa takes on Kwame as a certain level beyond all the others who have been mentioned. But it will also be very difficult in the light of all that has happened to go back and remove the apostrophe and put it inside and abandon everybody else and put Kwame as the sole person and not recognize anybody.
It undermines. You cannot water down. You see, Senior, what you are seeking to
in my
do,
view,
in one breath, you acknowledge distinctively the role of Sajifo Dr. Kwame Nkrumah and the founders.
I don't know why you are struggling to understand it.
No,
you see, that is the way
it can never be a black and white.
In all these conversations,
it can never be black and white.
The contribution
it can never be black and white. It can never be black and white.
I thought
the idea of what people is also important.
It can never be black and white. It can never be black and white. If it is founders, it was led by Kwame Nkrumah.
I will ask this as my last question.
It's a binary. No, 30 seconds. It's a binary conversation. It is either zero or one.
No, it's more binary.
It's not historical. It cannot be zero or one.
You limit the debate.
It cannot be zero
or one.
I have just one last question. In light of Eduji's interjection and in light of the affirmative action bill which has just been passed, was there any woman mentioned in our fight for independence?
There are women right from the beginning, even from the poll tax ordinance.
Can you give us any of their names?
So we have Kate Dawson. When they passed the poll tax ordinance, she wrote a letter with Mrs. Selby that it is affecting because they were industrialists at the time. The husbands have died. They were controlling a lot of resources that time. Kate Dawson's property, he married Swansea. The property is what they sold and they joined the Miller Brothers, what is today called Nestle. The company.
Okay.
They started from that woman's property. That's where they started.
Dawson.
Kate Dawson.
I see.
So even here, you can start from the beginning of women's incorporation into our nationalism struggle from the poll tax ordinance.
Were there any women mentioned in the UGCC?
In the UGCC, there were women. In fact, at the opening, grand opening, some of them came with their wives. Others who were like Mrs. Ruby, Kote Papafiu, Gladys, Kesefo's daughter, all of them were there. They have been involved in writing. But because they were not at the forefront then, but they have also contributed intellectually to the ideas. Some have also contributed their finances. That is why normally history remember the later day CPP, Nade Ashkisha, and all those people, how they contributed. Hannah Kujo, very effective woman, leading the campaign to the northern region, the recruiting of the Northerners and so on. It was not a joke at that time. So women really play a significant role in the independence struggle. Except that in those days, you know, the politics of the time, patriarchy was at its apex. So kind of newspaper reportage always will deal with the men first. If you look at all the marriages, they will even mention
I just wanted the platform to acknowledge the contribution of women in the conversation. Because oftentimes, they are relegated as though they never played any significant, you know. And
I've forgotten the first woman MP, Mabel Dove, of which Nkrumah married, Franz Dove's daughter. So they did very when they say Nancy Timu. So also from Ashanti. They all play a lot of
Thank you. And thank you, Eduji, for bringing that up.
This conversation is relevant today. Some people are saying it's not relevant, but it's relevant today in the light of what you've just said. What are we fighting for now? When we refer to women as a Ministry of Women and Children, so the affirmative action, women are always effectively behind the greatest movements, and yet they are never in the forefront. We are still referring to you as Women and Children's Ministry. So lumping women together with youth.
Children.
But indeed, we need to fight as youth. We need to fight for the realization. We need to have. It is not a given, not entitled because you are born and you are young. You fight for it all the while. All these people mentioned, they were very young when we were doing these things. So at this time, this fight is relevant to the progress of this country as reflected in the youth. The youth must be prepared to sacrifice the way these people did in order to fight forward. So I'm saying this in the light of the ongoing demonstrations in Kenya and Nigeria, where some are taking it that, oh, once you demonstrate, it shows how youthful you are and how strong you are and how you are against it. It's not just merely about demonstration or protest. It's about constructiveness. It's about getting heard. It's about participating effectively. It's about getting the elders, those whose names are mentioned, the apostrophe people, to appreciate and accept that you are also part of the process.
Those people to
that is why First Republic.
You see, I like the people
July 1st. We need to go back to the July 1st.
All right.
Those people, they were selfless. They were not corrupt.
That's all our time. That's our time.
It's very significant.
That's our time.
Thank
you so much, gentlemen. And special thanks to our historian, Mr. Ankrah, for giving us deep insights into the happenings of them days.
Yeah.
All the way till now. I've learned a lot, and a lot of our messages coming in are actually going out to you, thanking you for bringing us our rich history, some of which are not published in our books. Some of which are not published in our books that we read. Yeah, you pull them from different sources. And so this video will go a long way to educate a lot of our young people who are asking questions about Founders Day. Thank you so much, sir. And also special thanks to you, Mr. Yaabo Abina-Samoa, advisor to Alan Chemanting, and the man of the moment, Mr. Ediji Tamaklo, Director of Legal Affairs of the NDC. Thank you so much, gentlemen, for coming. This has been very insightful. Yes, let's all enjoy the holiday, gentlemen, and all the best to you as you go.
Yes, as he thanks people. Don't you have anybody in your party to?
That's it for the segment. I'm sorry I did not read your messages. I'm sure you understand why. But we can cash out if you dial *439#. You can win 1,000 Ghana cedis this morning on the show or more. But before that, step into the world of Dewa 539 for the chance to win big with Dewa Direct, Dewa Chop Money. And with Dewa Direct, all you have to do is dial *446#. Pick any number between 1 and 39. You can win 20 times, 40 times, or 400 times your stake and win cash every evening at 7 p.m. and on Sundays at 6 p.m. Early birds love Dewa Chop Money. At 10 a.m., dial *446#. Choose any number between 1 and 39 and win 20 times, 40 times, or 400 times your stake. Play at dewa-nla.com or dial *446#. If you need any help, you can call 0556-259-249 or 0532-479-879. Dewa Afa. Stay tuned. We'll be right back.